Hello, my friends. This is Andy coming to you live from Orange County, California. It is Monday, February 15th at 7:20. I know it's a little late, but I actually was trying not to do a live tonight because, I just feel like sometimes I'm just like bombarding the audience with so many lives about, live streaming, about devotionals. But I do realize this. I think I'm developing a network. And each one of the shows has a unique perspective, a unique topic, and there's so much to be offered out there for all of these subjects that I'm speaking about. And then although I heard this about this issue with the cop that passed away on January 6th in Washington D.C. that I was told and I believed that he was beaten with a fire extinguisher. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about it. I'll come back to it, but I just like for a moment, even I started to believe the media. Even I started to believe Fox News or OAN or whoever it is, that they had done their work, their homework, in deciding that that story was true, that a police officer had been beat with a fire extinguisher. Now, it turns out that that's not true. And like I said, I've heard it over the last couple of days, and I have this tendency to wait sometimes, not always, unfortunately, but I tend to wait, and because almost the truth will almost always come out after some time. This big, huge headline, Donald Trump tweeted something, and then later on I go, oh, no, that he didn't do that. That was back in 2019, or what have you, a whole bunch of information. But on this one, it was like, oh my gosh, they beat what? Trump supporters beat a cop with a fire extinguisher. It seemed like, wow, we got to condemn them. It was almost like the George Floyd incident. As a police officer, I had to come out and say, wow, no, it is never okay to kneel on somebody's neck to the point where they die. No, that is obviously horrible. And then we begin to see videos of where he was throwing down some narcotics in an attempt not to be caught with narcotics. And it is quite possible that is what killed him. As you can tell, we're hearing nothing about George Floyd at this particular time. So I'm sitting here trying not to come on live, and I'm really like, it's like, there's certain things you want to do, and you're fighting off the urge to do them. And I got to go live. Like, I'm just so disgusted as a police officer, 21 years. And that may be a bias. Some of you may come on who watch on YouTube and Twitter, who like to be trolls and watch these kinds of things and like to come on and say, "Oh, you're just a racist cop. You're a bigot. You're an a-hole. You're a Nazi," which is all the names I've been called. But we have to stop the ludicrous idea that American citizens, and I want to go here, and I'm going to come back to the unfortunate situation with the officer in Washington, D.C., is that as a young man, when I was 21 years old, and it started when I was 20, but applying for law enforcement agencies and deciding that I want to be a cop, for me, now there's other officers who became police officers whose it's in their blood, as they have ancestors and their fathers and their grandfathers were police officers. With me, no one that I know of in my lineage was a police officer. This came on me after I graduated from high school, after I was driving buses. I was a magician doing magic in restaurants. I was juggling. I was doing a bunch of stuff. And I ran into a guy who was a cop, and he said, "Hey, it is really a great job. And this is what happens. This is what you do," and this kind of stuff. And so as a young man, at my 21 years old, I decided, you know what, instead of going down a life of debauchery, of criminal activity, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to become a cop. Now, in my devotional, I talk about a bunch of stuff, and I just want to make sure this is clear. It may sound like I was completely renegade, but I was not. I knew when to drink and when not to drink. I never drank on a day that I worked. I only drank on my days off. And that continued as a cop. If I was at a conference and this kind of stuff, there are these rules that I had personally that barred me from acting out and being obnoxious. And I think many cops are the very same way. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I want you to understand that when you make a decision to become a police officer, it really is, in most cases, not all. And again, I understand that, but that's the same thing with doctors, same thing with lawyers. It's the same thing with financial specialists. It's the same thing with the plumbers. I mean, you get into position with the right intentions, and then sometimes those intentions are not true or not always maintained as you go on. But I can tell you that I would say the majority of the police officers, the guys that I work with, the women that I work with, they became police officers because they wanted to make a difference in the world. They want to make a difference in the community. And I'm really getting sick and tired of being used as a retired cop, even being used as a means of political gain, as a means of demonizing law and order. That no longer do we need to arrest bad guys, criminals, because cops are bad. That we no longer need to protect our borders because ICE agents are horrible, racist people. It's a really strange narrative. And as more of this, and I'm gonna come back later when I have more time to think about it and put together an actual show. But I want to come on and just tell you that I am just so disgusted and I'm just so over the BS that we're being used. Law enforcement officers, men and women, FBI, police officers, sheriff's deputies, ICE agents, all of us that have dedicated our life to protect all of you while you're sleeping. Whether you're a politician or an average citizen, we have people out there working right now while you're enjoying a meal, while you're teaching your kids arithmetic because you can't send your kids to school, while you are going to go to sleep tonight. There are men and women out there that are driving around making sure that people aren't coming into your house and taking your life, that people aren't driving around trying to take your property, your cars, that are not breaking into businesses during the hours of being closed to take the computers, that there are men and women out there that are out there patrolling at night and staying awake, protecting you during the hours when you want to just sleep and relax and not have to worry about those things. I'm just so freaking disgusted. Beyond my decision to not go on tonight. The motivation for me to come on tonight is sheer disgust at this point. The teachers are not going back to work because they are afraid of something that has such a, I was going to point to the numbers. I had these numbers up here of these ridiculously low numbers. But yeah, we want cops to go out there. And this is the thing, right? We want cops to go out there. We want firemen to go out there. We want nurses to go out there. We want doctors to go out there and be active and working towards the betterment of mankind and do the right thing. And yet we have these teachers unions go, no, we can't. But yet, no, you go out there, grocery store worker. No, you go out there, a police officer. No, you go out there, bus driver. You go out there, all these people that are still out there doing, I don't know if bus drivers are still working. I should probably take that back. I don't know. I haven't seen a bus operating. Maybe buses aren't working. Now I think about it. But the grocery store workers are still working. I just went to the grocery store. The box people are working. The box, I got to use people because I can't apparently use girls or boys anymore. But you got people who are, they're bagging, the baggers are still bagging groceries. They go to work. And you teacher, now the teachers at Golden, they're going to work because they're fantastic people. Right? We have teachers in some of these schools that are going back to work because they're amazing people, because they understand the importance of going to school. But you have teachers unions who are, no, we can't go. It's too dangerous. But yet police officers are going out there tonight. A large number of police officers throughout our country are going back to work tonight to protect you And oh, by the way, they're being demonized. And by the way, they're being said that they are systemically racist. We're being told that we need to dismantle and they're Nazis, they're baby killers. I mean, all the names that I've been called over the last several weeks, and I couldn't be more disgusted with what's happening today. Sorry, I need to take a break because I'm just really getting pissed, and I'm going to say some cuss words, and I want to look at all my beautiful people that are on right now. We got Amy on. Hey, Amy, where have you been? I haven't heard from you lately. What's going on with you? Priscilla. We got Bev. Thank God. Bev and I had lunch today. Everybody saying hi to each other. Hedia, my love, my beautiful bride. Everybody saying hi. Again, saying hi. Priscilla, I too are disgusted by the treatment of our men and women in blue. I have nothing but the utmost respect for them, and thank you for every chance I get. I appreciate that so much. I'm going to bring up this article. I'm going to bring this picture of this beautiful man. It's an amazing man. And I don't know from the story, I didn't read that much, and I wish I knew more about him, whether he is has a wife or, he has family, obviously, parents who died on January 6th. And let's read a little bit of this article, just the first couple paragraphs, I think, maybe 3 paragraphs. Not that it will get much notice in the corrupt media, but a key piece of the narrative around last month's chaos at the United States Capitol turns out to be a complete lie. One reason why Democrats and the media have been allowed to smear Trump supporters as violent extremists and domestic terrorists is the tragic and unfortunate death of Brian Sicknick, a Capitol police officer who was involved in the chaos on January 6th and died the next day. Sicknick's death was attributed to being beaten with a fire extinguisher by protesters and was used to accuse the former POTUS of inciting murder, a very serious charge that was leveled against Trump by top Democrats. But the story of how Officer Sicknick actually died has never held up to any serious scrutiny, largely because in an area filled with surveillance cameras, there was no footage to support the claims that he was bludgeoned to death. Nonetheless, the media ran with the story, including the New York Times, whose sensationalistic coverage of Sicknick's death greatly contributed to the current state of mass hysteria. But the New York Times story with the inflammatory headline of Capitol Police Officer Dies from Injuries in Pro-Trump Rampage was just one more of the same fake news that the once venerable newspaper has pumped out for the last 5 years. The paper has now quietly issued a correction, noting that Sicknick's death was not caused by being attacked with a fire extinguisher. So I read that story, and I think I spoke about it maybe a month ago, that I have not really seen anything that shows that actually occurred. Like, you would think with the amount of the iPhones and Androids and cameras that were present during this whole thing, that not one ounce of footage that showed this supposed fire extinguisher attacking a place. Like, who would not, if they had that footage? For God's sake, they got President Kennedy's assassination on camera. You would think with the amount of cameras, there was nothing. And that was one of the things I brought up in the Facebook Live. And again, I said, where is the footage of this officer's life being taken at the hands of a Trump supporter? You mean to tell me that there's nothing? And my suspicions were true. And yet the New York Times, and I wrote that I don't understand how people don't care. I don't understand how Democrats don't care that they used a man, a law enforcement officer who gave his life somehow. We don't know. Apparently nobody knows. I know that somebody knows, but apparently that nobody outside the elite circle knows. But they definitely wanted to make sure and use this man who dedicated himself to protecting people, protecting the community. They wanted to use him. Use him to protect, to attack somebody that they hate. They wanted to use it for political reasons. And we're allowing this to happen. All of law enforcement, has the right to walk off the job right now. But you know what? They won't. I remember when we were having some problems in the city, and we were at the APA, the Anaheim Police Association. We were having some real difficulties with our city council and our mayor and a whole bunch of stuff. And we discussed it. We talked about the aspect of a blue flu and not showing up for work, and none of us could do it. A couple of us took a day off, I think. I don't know that I did, but we don't. We don't. None of us do, ever. If any agency, if any law enforcement agency, any police officers at all had the right to walk off their job, it's police officers in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis. And yet night after night, riot after riot, being lasered, their eyes being lasered and blinded, having trash can lids thrown at them and concussed and knocked to the ground, having Molotov cocktails throwing at them, having their cars lit on fire. Very few of them took the day off. Now, they're retiring, don't get me wrong. They're retiring, but they're doing it the right way. They could have just all said, F you, I'm out of here. And yet they still showed up for the job. How many of you go into your day job, go into your cubicle, go into whatever job you have? How many people, and again, I'm not going to demean a specific person, but how many of you would go to work when as you're walking into your job, your accounting job, and your desk was lit on fire? Would you show up to work the next day? If you were called a racist pig and spit on and yelled at and screamed at and called an MFer and you were killing children, how many of you would show up to your job next day? These men and women show up in spite of all that, in spite of their police cars and all their belongings that are inside the car being lit on fire. I remember packing my crap in my car, my lunch, right? My personal belongings, all the personal equipment that I brought so that I felt comfortable in my police car. And then somebody would light my police car on fire and light all my stuff on fire. And yet I would be one of those guys that would show up the next day. You almost like you show up like an idiot. No, you show up because you are responsible. You show up because you care. You show up because you signed up for the job, regardless of what happened to you, that you would show up the next day to protect life, protect children, to protect people while they were sleeping. And in spite of all that, these men and women still showed up every day. And these teachers unions are saying, no, we can't go there. We can't go because we might die. There's the percentages are so low. These cops are showing up in Seattle in the riots where the chance of them getting hurt was very high. Their chance of dying was very high. And yet they got in their car, they drove to work, they put their uniform on, and they went and stood there in front of a crowd of people who hated them, who spit on them, who threw dung, fecal matter at them, who threw bottles of piss at them, who shot lasers at their eyes, and they still put the uniform on and went to work. And now you have a gentleman, a police officer who's being used for political reasons, and didn't honor him for showing up to work today, maybe with a heart problem. The belief is that he died of a heart attack. You know, many people feel that they don't feel well, that something's going on, that they don't feel right, that their chest feels a little tight, that they're out of breath. And I'm sure that there's something going on with this police officer that knew that, you know what? I know I don't feel well, but I'm going to go to work anyway. And it cost him his life. That's what I believe. I believe we had a man, we had a human being, we had an American citizen who didn't feel well, but knew that he had a duty to do. that he knew that he had to go to work that day because something might happen. He might need to protect the Capitol. He may need to protect people to make sure that they were safe, even though he didn't feel right. That's what I believe. And he showed up anyway. And it cost him his life. And then the Democrats, and then the New York Times, and then the politicians, the horrific politicians, used him for their benefit, used his death for the benefit, didn't honor him in the way that he needed to be honored. We are living in ridiculous times. We are living in a time that these police officers are being demonized. Why? Why? The best of our community, the best people in our world are being called racist. The best people in our world are being called white supremacists. They're being called I'm just going to cuss and use names. They're being called names that nobody should be called. These are men and women who have families. They have children. And they're doing it because of their children, because of their family. That's the reason I went to become a police officer. Every day I went, when I went to sex crimes detail as a detective, I went there every day hating my job, but I knew that I had to go there to protect children, to protect my daughter, to protect my future children from the scourge of this earth. Predators, child molesters. I went there and I looked at criminal. I looked at the photos of the crime scenes. I'm so sorry. The crime scenes. And I had to look at them. I had to evaluate them. I had to decide on the evidence value of stuff that was present on people's computers, the pictures that they took, the things that they did. I had to interview the child molesters and get them to confess to putting their penis inside of a 6-year-old, to taking their fingers and digitally penetrating a 4 or 5-year-old. I had to do that. Not you. I had to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to crime scenes where women were brutally attacked. A woman was brutally attacked. 22 bones were broken in her face because a rapist beat her face and took her naked body and threw it into a grocery cart and pushed her up State College Boulevard near the 91 freeway, blood dripping underneath the grocery cart, bite marks all over her body from the predator. I had to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drive my ass to Anaheim, and evaluate the crime scene, the blood, the photos of her naked body that was bitten all over her body, the broken bones in her face. I had to do that while you were sleeping. And I'm only telling you that story because I want you to know that I'm not. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of police officers who are dealing with the same thing every day. And you're throwing fecal matter at them? And you are calling them racist and white supremacist? And you're using the death of a police officer for your advantage, for you? Never in a million years would I use somebody's death to my advantage. Never. And yet you have a party, an entire party, and a newspaper that uses the death of a police officer because they hate somebody. That man went to work that day, probably not feeling well, and it cost him his life. He went there because he loved his community. He loved what he did for a job. He loved the fact that he was going there to protect people, and you used him. We are living in disgusting times. I know I have tons of comments, and I am so sorry that I'm... I don't know. They think he had a heart attack now. But we are told he was beat with a fire extinguisher. I know. I'm breathing. I know. I got to take a breath. So many good comments. And I'm so sorry. There's so many. I can see them popping up, and I wish I could read them all. How about the Democrats faking or changing evidence multiple times during? Oh my God! The fact they change evidence, they have no shame. Democrats have no shame. All of you Democrats, I don't care. I really don't care. And I know I made Hetty a promise. I know I made many a promise. They are morons. They're idiots. They are just despicable. They're despicable human beings. Today, it just hit a height. And I was trying to avoid the article, and I read the article, and I just like, you have got to be kidding me. I cannot not speak out. They're just despicable human beings. The Democratic Party is full of despicable human beings. Their voters are no different. Their voters know. You can't be that stupid. You can't be that dumb. You cannot be that moronic that you voted for a man that you know is cognitively impaired. You can't. You only voted for him because you hate somebody. You voted for a vice president that was bailing out criminals who were looting and burning down buildings of other black business owners, of attacking federal buildings. You bail out somebody who is attacking a federal building, and then you have the outrage that something happened at a federal building. And then you manufacture evidence to try to prove a point. And you use a police officer in a way that he should never be used. Thank you, Bev. Oh, Bev remembers one of the call I talked about. Wow, that's a long one. The crowd was peaceful. People went on the Capitol steps, all of their backs to the door. It was just a photo op. Backs to the door, nobody breaking in. Carol was there, by the way, in Washington, D.C. On the Supreme Court side, there were paid rioters in the crowd. Easy to spot. We were set up by the left. I am so disgusted. Hollywood movie. Perfect plan. Paid protester did this. I believe you. I mean, with everything they've done in the impeachment trial, how the New York Times, how all this stuff now suddenly they're bringing out Cuomo's role in killing people, the elderly in New York, de Blasio's role, and somehow he's escaping a bunch of media. The police officer, now they tell you that it wasn't a fire extinguisher beating that killed him. It just really is. It just really is odd. Thank you, Hetty. I love you. I just wanted to come on for this brief moment. I know I need to prepare more for some of these things sometimes, but I was sitting there. I had got some Mexican food. I know, Hetty, I said I was going to get pho, but instead Mexican was calling me today. I went and got a cheese burrito, a cheese enchilada, a chile relleno, and a shredded beef taco over at El Pueblito, my favorite Mexican place in Placentia. I tried. I was fighting the urge. I got to go on. This is crazy. And how they're using law enforcement. And the disgust, I just began to think, God, and these men and women, and early on, if you go back to my broadcast way before I met Hedia, maybe months before I met Hedia, it was saying that you guys shouldn't go to work. It is way too dangerous. You are going to go to work and you are going to handcuff somebody, and they're going to claim that you broke their wrist, and you're going to lose your job, and you're going to be arrested, and you're going to put in jail for assault and battery under color of authority. And I was warning police officers, but way back then, all the way back to George Floyd. I don't know when that was. I don't remember how long ago it was, but I was telling you, you guys are crazy, because they are going to hang you for anything you do. You cannot show up for work. And yet they continue. And I just like, of course they did. Of course they did. I probably would too. As much as I'm saying you cannot go back to work, I would be the one that went back to work, because the desire and drive to go back to work to protect our communities from the criminal element is too strong. It overpowers us, and we will sit there. And I know there were times when I even thought about calling in sick and thinking, I can't. I'm the only canine that would be available. I got to go, or I'm the only detective that would be available, or whatever. I can't. I feel so guilty, and I'd get up and I would go, even when I was really sick, and would still go. And it just dumbfounds me that we have this stupid teachers unions and just people that are like, well, we can't go back to work because we might get the flu. But you have cops. Not only did they have COVID, they were battling. They were being shot at. They were having Molotov cocktails thrown at them. They were having their eyes blinded by lasers. They had trash can lids being thrown at them, as I've seen. They had people spitting on them, fecal contamination, urine being poured on them, and they showed up every day. And we have teachers, a teachers union. I don't know that many teachers that had said, I'm not showing up. But we have a teachers union saying, don't go to work. For one thing. And yet cops going to work for out of any human being that should not be going to work, it would be a cop. Like I can catch COVID, I could be blinded, I could be shot at, I could be run over by a car, which one was, I could be beat with something, right? They were all being beat by a rock or a brick or some other object, a bat. They're having, I could go on. And yet they still showed up. There was no police union saying, you know what, it's just too dangerous. We need masks and we need partitions and we need what? They were busy taking away the less lethal options that police officers had. They were busy taking away their weapons. They were busy saying that, you can't use shields. They were busy saying that you can't have protection. And yet you still need to go to work. Cops cannot have protection, yet teachers needed more protection, and they weren't being blinded by lasers. They were not having Molotov cocktails thrown at them. They were not having bricks thrown at them during class. None of that was happening, and yet they do not show up for work. And yet everyday cops. And then in the end, let's use a cop's death for our benefit. It was the most ridiculous time we were living in that I know of. I'm sorry, I keep adjusting my seat, but I'm just so I'm just so riled up right now. I love you guys that come on and listen to my rantings. But I'm going to ask you to bless a police officer, to pray for our police officers, to, like somebody said, I forget who, I'm so sorry. I think it was, Priscilla. I think it was Priscilla, who says that she thanks them every moment she has, every opportunity she has. I met a great police officer the other night. Hetty and I met a great police officer on Sunday. Great guy. The other two were great also. It's just we spent more time with the sergeant. Great man, showing up every day for work, has kids, has a wife, shows up every day, doing the work that nobody else wants to do. And then I read a story of how they used a police officer's death to benefit them, to blame a person they hate with a lie of how the police officer died. Just complete, like a dog, like an insect. They used them like an insect, like a dog. Not even like a human being. If he would have been anyone else, if he would have been George Floyd, people would have been praising and bowing down. If he would have been the guy that was shot in Atlanta, the rapist who was shot and they showed him more respect. Kamala Harris went and told him how proud she was of the man who was convicted of domestic violence and rape, who fought off police officers and threatened to kill them. Kamala Harris honored him and said how proud she was of him. But the police officer who died on January 6th, they used him. She didn't go to the family and say how proud they were of him. They didn't do anything for him other than use him like a rag. But they build murals or paint murals of George Floyd, a criminal who was committing a crime at the time that he died. I don't know how he died anymore. And I'm sorry to tell you that we don't know. It was horrible that the cop kneeled on his neck for it. Yes. But I don't know that's what killed him. But they painted murals of him. They have T-shirts of him. They have songs, I'm sure, that are written about him. They did a whole bunch of stuff for him. His entire life was not based on saving lives and going to work every day to protect the community. His life was not like that. He was a longtime criminal serving time as a convict, never to change his ways. The only reason the cops came in contact with him because he was committing another crime. They honored him more than they honored this police officer. Showed up every day to work and used his death to their benefit. Not honoring him. The criminal in Atlanta, the rapist, a man who committed domestic violence, kidnapping, threatened police officers, threatened to kill them. Kamala Harris goes to him and says, "I am so proud of you." That's who we have in power right now. The same woman who bailed out the criminals who were looting and burning buildings and destroying federal buildings and police departments. She was encouraging her followers to bail out criminals, opening borders to criminals coming across the border, but yet stopping the travel between states, American state to American state. Americans cannot travel from state to state, but illegal immigrants can come across the border. Illegal criminals can come across the border. We're living in sad times. I wish I had something positive to say coming off of this particular message that I decided to come on and share with you, but I don't. I have nothing positive. I only encourage you to be involved. I only encourage you to be involved in your school board. I only encourage you to be involved in your representatives of your state, because these are sad times. I am biased. A police officer, 21 years, who tried to do the right thing for all of those 21 years. Who tried to make a difference. Who I've taught thousands of police officers across the United States of America, in other countries, in Canada, in Europe, in South America. I trained them how to enter buildings safely, how to take control of a situation without people being hurt. Trained them over and over again, taught them how to do it so people wouldn't die, taught them how to do it so people would stay alive, investigated sex crimes, rode in a helicopter, did as much as I possibly could. And I'm disgusted. I am not the only one. And I am not a special person. I'm not a great person. I'm just telling you that I went to work every day. I went to work there at the times that HIV was very prominent. We were going into buildings and houses with HIV positive people all the time. No masks, no gloves. They didn't give us any protective gear. We had to go in there just knowing, hey, this guy's HIV positive. Okay, we go in. And we fought. My dog bit people that were HIV positive. I'm not telling you that to tell you that I'm a special. I'm just telling you there are people out there doing this job. And just to be so disrespected by the New York Times, being disrespected by Democrats, all of you, voters, politicians, I don't care. I've had my own family. I've had other people say, I don't like the way you talk about us Democrats. I don't like you. How about that? I don't like who you voted for. I don't like who you believe in. I don't like the BS bullshit lies. I don't like that you call me a racist, but I don't attack you necessarily. I call you a moron. But I don't throw a Molotov cocktail at your house. That's what happens to us, conservative Christians. You attack us. You want us arrested. You want us to be called insurrectionists. You want to call us terrorists. I would not do that to you. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You need to pray to God. You need to find Jesus Christ. You need something. I don't know what it is, but you've lost your way. But I will not attack you. I will not hurt you. You simply are just moronic and you've lost your way. That is all. And I would not use your death to my bet. If you died, I would say, oh, that Democrat caused that. Somehow Biden's, caused your death. No, I would go to your funeral and say, oh my gosh, I'm so sad for you and your family for your loss. I would not find a way to use your death to benefit me. Like you use this police officer's death to benefit you. You used it to impeach a president because you hate him. You used a police officer's death, a man's death, to help you in an impeachment. I would never use your death to do anything. I would pray over you. I would pray that you got into heaven. I would pray that you saw Jesus Christ. I would never use your death to my benefit for anything. For fertilizer for my plants, I would not use your death. And yet, you have a police officer showed up for work that day to protect property, to protect people, and you used his death. You imbecilic morons, hateful people. That's all I have to say. For all of you watching, please subscribe. Please share my message. I just got off a suspension with YouTube. I have a feeling I'm going to be suspended again. But what can you do? I've just created a Patreon page and some other stuff. I got some other stuff going on. This message, this thing today was all personal. It was all from my heart, and I'm just disgusted. And I hope you will. I don't want your forgiveness. I just want you to understand that we are in very sad, sorry times when we're taking men and women, Americans who show up every day, who wake up, leave the home where they've left their wife and their children, or their husband and their children, to go and defend us. During the day, while we're working, at night, while we're sleeping, while we're having dinner, while we're having breakfast, there are men and women out there that are the shield between good and evil. And they are being demonized, and they're being used, and they're being so disrespected. So with that, I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Take care.